Africa Enlightenment Center, Religious, Political, and Social Enlightenment.
Religious ideas, religious beliefs are a byproduct of cognitive mechanisms designed originally for other purposes. Now, what's a byproduct? I notice a few people taking notes. Reading and writing is a cultural byproduct. We don't have reading and writing modules in our brain. It's a byproduct of fine motor skills, vision, language. Music is a byproduct of language, hard vowels and consonants put to rhythm, originally the rhythm of a beating heart. And this is the essence of what religions are. Religions are byproducts of cognitive mechanisms, everyday cognitive mechanisms that created and arise really as an artifact of our ability to imagine social worlds. They're always, every religious idea is a human concept with some slight alteration. Now, how many of you here love Big Mac meals? Now, come on, I'm a psychiatrist. You can tell me, it's confidential information, it's protected by HIPAA rules. You can tell me, how many of you love Big Macs? Come on. Of course. How many of you have cravings for broccoli? Cravings for broccoli. I mean, you can see there's variation in a species, but there's very few. All right, why? The reason for this is that if you understand the psychology of the Big Mac meal, you understand the psychology of religion. I'm serious. Let me show you this, okay? We evolved adaptations for things that were crucial and rare. Sugars of ripe fruit, fat of lean game meat, of salt. Those were crucial adaptations in our past. And the modern world creates a novel form of it that comes from those adaptations but hijacks them with supernormal stimuli. Okay, not ripe fruit, but a Coca-Cola. Not lean game meat, but a fat hamburger. French fries soaked in meat juice. And it creates these supernormal stimuli, but they're based on ancient adaptations. Let me just take you now on a little bit of a tour of some of these cognitive mechanisms. The first is decoupled cognition. Now, this is a fancy word for we can decouple our cognition in time. Since I have been talking, I will guarantee you that everybody in this room has thought of, while you're listening to me and paying close attention, you have thought of a conversation you have had with somebody in the past, or you are thinking about a conversation you're going to have with somebody later on today. As I'm talking right now, every one of us in this room can imagine and conduct in our heads a conversation with President Obama. Okay? It is, as you can see, it's extraordinary, and it's crucial for memory, for planning. Absolutely one of the essences of our humanity. It allows us these complex interactions with unseen others, complex social interactions with unseen others. You can see that it's just one little step to, communicating with a dead ancestor. I don't know about you, but I'm getting to the age where a lot of those near and dear to me have died, and I catch myself still talking to them. It's one step further to communicating to a god or gods. Hyperactive agency detection. All of us will mistake a shadow for a burglar. We will never mistake a burglar for a shadow. We have these hyperactive agency detection mechanisms. If we were to hear a loud bang right now, we would all startle, and we would assume it was not an accident, it was agency, and probably human agency. Now, you may reasonably ask, well, okay, how does decoupled cognition, interacting with another, how does hyperactive agency, how does that lead to supernatural figures, though? I mean, to, supernatural burglars. Okay, how do you get the next level up from human to supernatural? This. Your minds fill in, there are no lines there, but your minds see that square and fill in the lines. It's called intuitive reasoning. And it underlines the essence of religious ideas, which are minimally counterintuitive worlds. MCIs. Now, what is this? It's an optimal compromise between the interesting and the expected. And it gives us attention-arresting and memorable things. Let me illustrate. If I tell you that that big tree out in front of the conference center will do your taxes, wash your laundry, reprogram your computer, you're simply not going to believe me. But if I tell you that tree, on the night of a full moon, will hear your wishes and grant them, you might be vulnerable to believing that. Not this audience, but many people. But you might be vulnerable to it because there's just one slight twist, but everything you know about trees is intuitively in there, and you fill in the blanks. Now, think of the Judeo-Christian God. Okay? He's everywhere. There's a little twist of physics, but it's just a guy. And you fill in the blanks. You don't even think about it, but you fill in the blanks. There's no violation of basic human assumptions. He's a guy. He can understand my southern accented English. All the assumptions about humanness are filled in. There's just one little twist. And all religious ideas have these supernatural templates. They have a counterintuitive physical property, like, God is everywhere. May have a counterintuitive piece of biology, the virgin birth, but Mary is otherwise just a girl. Counterintuitive psychology, God knows what I'm thinking, but if he knows what I'm thinking, why do I still have to pray to him? Why do I still have to talk to him? Because again, those basic assumptions about humanness are all still intact. That's why we believe it, that's why we'll start to accept it, and that's why it sticks in our heads. There's always the attribution of mental states, human mental states. Look at any religious idea. Go back to your college courses, think about any religious system, any religious ideas you know of, and they fit this model. Now, we see this most clearly, some of these vulnerabilities in children. And, we're all children grown up. Children from very early on are common sense dualists. What does this mean? It means you can take a 5-month-old and you can have a box, you can arrange for a box to move, jump, start like a person, and a 5-month-old will startle. A 5-month-old doesn't startle when a human being moves in exactly the same way. So very early on, you start to see that we have systems that are designed for dealing with agents, with intentions and goals, and physical objects. Children know more than they learn. We come into the world with these systems already in place. It is natural from very early on to think of disembodied minds. Now, you can flip it around and you can understand why this is crucial. If I required a body to think about that person's mind, that's a real liability. It's burdensome. I need to be able to think about somebody and think about what's going on in them and what their intentions or goals might be without them present. Jesse Bering in Ireland did some fascinating experiments, a puppet show in which an alligator eats a mouse. And then the children are asked, well, does the mouse still need to eat or drink? And the children say no. Is the mouse still moving around? No. Does the mouse think certain things? Does the mouse want certain things? The children say yes. You start to see that division. Half of 4-year-olds, if you interview them, have imaginary friends. So that we see that the belief in some life separate from what is actually experienced in the body is the default setting of the human mind. Another thing about children is that they are causal determinists. What does this mean? Well, any mind that is oriented towards seeing intentions and desires and goals is going to overread purpose. If you ask a child, what are birds for? To sing. What are rivers for? for boats to float on? What are rocks for? And for animals to scratch themselves. Okay? We overread causality, way overread causality and purpose. If you go to the Dawkins website, there's a fascinating interview between Richard Dawkins and Randy Nesse. And at the beginning of the interview, it's fascinating. They both catch themselves talking about natural selection as an intentional agent. I mean, they realize they're using intentional language, and they stop themselves. And so it's very easy for us to imagine, again, intentional agents that are separate from ourselves. Children will spontaneously invent the concept of God. What you start to see are these mechanisms that we're born with make us all very vulnerable to religious ideas. Religious ideas are much easier. It's disbelief, it's truly understanding, say, something like natural selection, that is cognitively a little bit harder.